You're not going to tell me who's in charge of my courtroom, Mr. Martinez.
Can I please see my mom?
You already saw her. She just left.
You don't understand. I love her.
Imagine a society in which individuals who have mistreated others, bullies, abusers, and even powerful people, are eventually held responsible in the courts, the one place where they are unable to get away, the courtroom. What happens if the bully goes around and confronts the judge? Today we examine 5 real-life cases when bullies received the exact punishment they deserved. These cases will convince you of the influence of justice and karma. Let's watch how justice is served, so stick till the end. Case number 1, Clarice Ross's son, the school bully and the ambulance bill. A case that stunned the courtroom had 2 moms on opposing sides of an emotional and miserable conflict. The complainant, Danielle McDonald, arrived to get justice for her son, Dominic Rogers, a small child who was hospitalized after an aggressive assault in the lunchroom. The defendant, Clarice Ross, was on the opposing side and argued that it was self-defense rather than bullying. 2 kids who were previously buddies but strangely turned into rivals were at the center of it all. The side of Danielle's story is terrifying. Clarice's son caught her kid off guard in the school cafeteria. The assault was more than a simple shove or punch. Dominic had a concussion, lost a tooth, and spent the night in the hospital. He was terrified and missed a whole week of school. Danielle wasn't bringing the lawsuit for selfish or emotional reasons. She just wanted the ambulance costs to be paid since her child needed emergency treatment because of the harm committed by someone else. Clarice, however, experienced things quite differently. Although she acknowledged that there was a fight, she insisted that it wasn't unprovoked.
They walked back to class, and Dominic proceeded to hit my son in the head with some books.
She said that her kid was forced to the limit as a result of Dominic's constant insults. She said Dominic labeled him names and even joked about financial status while making fun of him for having cheap shoes. She saw it as a response to being targeted out and humiliated, not bullying. Although Clarice acknowledged that her kid was not ideal, she claimed that he was not a monster. The courtroom seemed to be a verbal battleground. Both moms were emotional and desperately tried to protect their kids. Danielle provided solid proof, including hospital bills, a police record, and even a school statement attesting to Dominic's serious injuries. As he went over the records, the judge was noticeably worried. Clarice, however, just had her word and her son's version of events, no medical evidence. The fact that Clarice's son was officially suspended for 5 days after the event was among the most alarming facts. Clarice's argument was greatly reduced by the school's obvious acceptance of her son as the aggressor. The court, who was clearly annoyed by the arguments, ignored the feelings and focused on the facts that Dominic was hurt, hospitalized, and endured suffering. There had to be fairness. Ultimately, the gavel struck with force. The judge decided in Danielle McDonald's favor and ordered that Clarice Ross will pay the ambulance bill. Although it wasn't a significant sum of money, this achievement was symbolic. Danielle has battled for her son's safety and dignity, in addition to financial gain. Case number 2, Judge Rena Hughes, the judge who bullied a child. Judge Rena Hughes of Clark County Family Court was at the heart of national anger in one of the most upsetting incidents to shake the family court system. Not for securing a child, but for damaging one. A normal custody hearing became something awful that leaves a little child scarred and raises significant concerns about the boundaries of judicial authority. It all started with a 12-year-old ballerina and her devoted mother, Maricela Barre. Their friendship remained solid for 3 years. After a challenging separation, they created an enjoyable life together by dancing and laughing together. However, when Judge Hughes took over the custody dispute, everything was different. What came next was scary, not just sorrowful. Despite the child's passionate request to remain with her mother, Judge Hughes made the alarming decision to deny Danielle primary custody and grant the father sole custody. Even expert legal professionals were shocked by what happened next, since the courtroom was supposed to have been the place of justice and safety. Judge Hughes left the frightened 12-year-old girl alone in the courtroom after ordering all adults, including attorneys and legal staff, to leave. Things went black at that point. The girl was threatened by the judge with being sent to child haven, which can be comparable to a juvenile jail institution. The girl was informed that she had to accompany her father or risk being imprisoned. Her screams and demands were in vain. Legal professionals were stunned. Jeff Temple, a professor at the School of Law, described Judge Hughes's behavior as extremely improper and alarming. In such a high-stakes custody case, it is very uncommon and very dangerous for a judge to have contact to a child alone. For years after that, the young girl and her loving mother would be troubled by the suffering they experienced during those 9 minutes. There were huge consequences. The public became angry when the courtroom footage was leaked. Judge Hughes' removal from the bench was demanded within days. The court instantly sealed the video in a doubtful way. Why? What did they wish to cover up? Even more concerning, more women started sharing identical stories of being afraid, having their emotions manipulated, and having their families split apart by decisions. Judge Hughes had been viewed as a danger to families in trouble, rather than as the initiator of a poor judgment. The public and legal professionals both criticized the judge's actions, which ultimately led to her being placed under inquiry. The one who was meant to defend the weakest had turned into the one who was hurting them. This case destroyed faith in the system in addition to breaking hearts. It also demonstrated a startling fact that the largest bully in the room can sometimes be dressed in a robe. Case number 3, undisclosed level 3. Sex offender. The Pierce County Courthouse in Tacoma, Washington, was scheduled to host another hearing, but everyone was deeply disturbed by what occurred that day. An undisclosed level 3 sex offender, who was considered the greatest danger to public safety, sat quietly next to his attorney in an almost empty courtroom. No handcuffs, no limitations. There was just a tense silence that was about to break out into violence. Then, in a surprising turn of events that no one expected, chaos began. Suddenly, the guy was on his feet, charging directly toward the front-seating judicial assistant. It was a forceful, purposeful attack rather than merely emotion. A wave of panic overtook the room. The on-duty female deputy didn't think twice. Her companion went off in a different way to assist her as she ran to cuff him. While others rushed for shelter, the assistant came out of the chair in alarm. The man was obviously furious. He was attempting to harm someone, not only get away. He broke a computer display into bits in the midst of the chaos by slamming his fists into it. Glass flew, sparks broke. Like a gunshot, the impact spread throughout the courtroom. The deputy wrestled him to the ground with a forceful tackle. It was quick, violent, and thrilling. As he resisted and kicked, other cops rushed in and helped control him. They eventually carried him out of the room while handcuffing him, leaving a path of devastation in their tracks. Thankfully, there were no physical injuries, but it was impossible to deny the terror in the room. It was a shock to many who trusted the security systems and worked in the courthouse every day. How could a man who was deemed a dangerous predator not be placed in handcuffs? How could there have been such a sudden and forceful moment? The assault conveyed a very obvious message. Danger may suddenly pop up even in the seemingly secure setting of a courtroom. As imagined, the individual is now facing more allegations, this time for possible violence and property destruction. The already rising controversy surrounding his case was further increased by his violent rage. This was more than a simple outburst. From a guy already charged with the most terrible offenses, it was a horrifying expression of true violence. His acts destroyed the feeling of safety in an organization based on law and order, in addition to damaging a screen. Ultimately, his rage was a sobering reminder that some people always bring turmoil with them, even into the corridors of justice. When that violence breaks out, it leaves behind devastation, terror, and yet another chapter in a criminal history that only gets worse. Case 4. Joshua Martinez, the defendant who challenged the judge at a court hearing in Las Vegas that started out as ordinary, turned into a stunning demonstration of pride, disobedience, and complete neglect for the law. Joshua Martinez, who was charged with a minor offense, driving with a suspended license, managed to make a routine hearing into a memorable courtroom battle. And it all occurred because he was unable to control his ego. Martinez made it plain as soon as he walked into the courtroom that he wasn't there to follow the rules. He stood in front of the judge to argue, not to make an agreement or offer an explanation.
Understand the nature and cause of the charges.
You're charged with driving on a suspended, canceled, or revoked driver's license. So
Okay. Is that a criminal offense or
it's a
civil?
criminal offense.
Criminal? Okay.
He refused to accept the charge and instead started asking strange questions, requesting written affidavits, contesting the court's jurisdiction, and even requesting that the judge establish the existence of an injured person.
There a sworn statement against me or injured party?
I believe you probably received a citation on April 12th. That would be the criminal complaint filed against you.
He needed evidence that his suspended license had caused harm to someone. It looked like a slow-motion crash and burn in a courtroom. The judge gently outlined the charge: driving with a suspended, removed, or canceled license, while obviously attempting to maintain her cool. Martinez, however, wasn't paying attention. He was always interrupting. He had questions about everything. He seemed to be attempting to make the court sound like a scheme podcast at points. The judge reminded him that the topic of discussion was traffic law. However, Martinez was more concerned with creating a show than finding a solution. Martinez never stopped defying authority. His actions were totally intolerable. He used the courtroom, which is supposed to be a place of justice and order, as a platform for conflict and jokes. The judge finally had enough. The judge slapped him with a disobedience of court charge and gave him a serious look. The situation turned at that point. Martinez left with a more significant issue than when he arrived, despite first believing he was more intelligent than the system. His simple traffic violation had suddenly escalated into a much more serious situation. The judge made it very evident that the courtroom is not a play area.
Okay, Mr. Martinez, since you have informed me that I am in contempt of court and that you are in fact in charge of this courtroom, I'm going to go ahead and sentence you today to direct contempt of court.
No matter how minor the charge is, you will suffer consequences if you treat the court disrespectfully. Martinez's courtroom actions grabbed media attention and shocked people on social media. People were stunned that someone would act so carelessly over such a simple matter. However, it serves as a practical reminder of what occurs when arrogance and stupidity clash with power. More fines, jail time, and a reputation as one of the most disrespectful defendants ever seen in that courtroom resulted from one stupid act out. Joshua Martinez ultimately faced the law, but he also questioned it, ridiculed it, and was devastated by it. His example serves as a harsh reminder that you must always show respect when entering a courtroom.
I'm going to ask you the question one more time. Did you wish to apologize and proceed in a manner I consider appropriate in this courtroom or not? Direct contempt, I'm going to sentence him to 15 days in jail, and we'll set it for video in 15 days from today.
Martinez believed he might have manipulated the judge, but instead he defeated himself and received a more severe punishment. Case number 5, the school bully, assault and consequences. A little girl's entire world fell apart in a matter of minutes in one of the most tragic school bullying incidents ever seen on camera. A young boy, surrounded by a small group of friends, focuses on a girl who appears obviously uncomfortable and alone in the first moment of the video, which went viral very quickly. What came next was nothing less than horrific. It begins verbally, with the kind of harsh name-calling that most people believe is just kids being kids. However, it soon turned into something far more evil. The girl is violently pushed to the ground by the boy, and he hits her once more when she tries to stand up. Once intelligent and lively, the girl had become emotionally and physically damaged. She lost interest in her hobbies, stopped talking much at home, and became afraid to return to school, according to her parents' later statements. She was broken, not just hurt. The public was outraged by the footage. It exposed a shocking truth of how observers frequently support brutality, not just one bully. Teachers, parents, and kids all called for justice. The boy was charged with assault and violence and taken into custody by the authorities after a few days. He had changed from a brazen teenager making fun of someone smaller to a defendant in court, bearing the consequences of his actions. The atmosphere in court was tense, as she explained how the incident left her feeling frightened in a place that should have protected her. The girl's voice dropped. Her mother sobbed as she claimed that violence had taken her daughter's smile. According to witnesses, bullying in schools was frequently ignored until it reached a dangerous level. The bully's arrogant smile was gone. He now realized the full scope of his actions and stood silently with his eyes downcast. The punishment included community service with an anti-bullying campaign, required therapy, and time spent in juvenile jail. These stories demonstrate that justice always finds a way to catch up, regardless of how strong, crafty, or violent a bully may be. Everyone is treated equally in court, and those who cause the suffering must take responsibility for their acts. Therefore, keep these incidents in mind the next time you question whether bullies ever received the justice they deserve. The balance of justice can occasionally shift in the most surprising and rewarding ways. For unexpected courtroom scenes, like and subscribe. Stay tuned.